Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's project Spotlight. My name is Emmanuel Titi, a developer advocate from Intersect Open Source Office. And today I'm joined by Hinson Wong, co-founder of Sidan Labs, the creators of Delta DeFi, which is our project focus for today. So Hinson, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do at Sidan.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I'm Hinson, the co-founder of Delta DeFi and Sidan Lab. So essentially, we are a Hong Kong-based team that work on both entity, but we are the same team. We have three things in focus. First and foremost is Delta DeFi, which is our most technical and most effort placed in, which is a Hydra-based performance exchange. It's like centralized trading experience, but on Cardano natively. And in Sidan Lab, we work on two things. First of all, is the open source toolings across the ecosystem, like mesh maintainer and a full suite of different languages, open source library. Another thing is we are hosting the local meetup and events in Hong Kong and in Asia area. Like we co-hosted the Builder Fest 2025 in Vietnam earlier this year, and yeah, there are a bunch of more other stuff. So there's an overview of our team and what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a great track record. I also know you are a Cardano ambassador, so it's very nice to see that you're fully involved in the ecosystem. I would like to probably know, just tell us a bit about how Delta DeFi works for someone who is hearing it for the first time.
So essentially, Delta DeFi is a Hydra-based old book that's on Cardano. So for whoever want to interact with Delta DeFi, have to deposit into a Hydra head, where we run the L2 infrastructure, and in there you could experience all the traditional Web2 experience without having to wait for block confirmations. And essentially, it's very fast and very cheap. Like there's no network fee. We only charge a trading fee on the filled order. And also we have the very traditional API access where people could just place the trade without knowing anything Cardano. So there's also the reason why we have maintained the full suites of open source tooling in Sidan Lab, because originally when we tried to build Delta DeFi, but we found out that in the ecosystem we can't find the right tool that we use to empower that not really have to understand what's Cardano experience of trading. Then we have a kind of more vertically integrated test stacks that we have. Like we start from the most core infrastructure, CBOR level library, and then wrap it into a more developer-facing endpoints like Mesh in other languages as well. Then we are ourselves the consumer of the open source library. We actively maintain it since we also need it. And with these tools, these open source tools help, we could build the very complex Hydra trading experience for the Cardano ecosystem.
Nice. That's very. I've heard you've mentioned Hydra as part of the not so secret sauce from your docs that you've been using. And I know you've been using Hydra before it was officially launched. I just want to know, what are some of the benefits that Hydra specifically adds to the DEX experience?
Yep. I think Hydra is pretty essential for the Delta DeFi implementation, because our goal is try to copy the entire Web2 trading experience, like in Binance, OKX, KuCoin, whatsoever. But one thing that we run into very quickly if we try to build it in an open blockchain is that there is transaction fee or gas fees in other ecosystem charge for every exchange you're interacting with the blockchain. But in a traditional trading experience, that's not the case. When people try to place the order, maybe they want to cancel it the next second, they're expecting exactly zero fee on that. So no matter it's on Cardano L1 or maybe in the upcoming very promising Midgard implementation, we still cannot do the exact same experience, because even a cheap fee is not a zero fee. And as a normal user, maybe we might not feel the difference, because for most of our interaction with Binance, it's just click a button to place it, and then another button to cancel it. Even it charge us maybe a cent, we won't feel anything about it. But for professional trader, it's not the case. Like they're placing maybe hundreds of order every minute, and they're doing maybe tens of order modification according to the market price and other data feeds. A cent could add up to a lot, like for those use cases. In Hydra, since we have the flexibility to configure exactly zero fee, like the network fee on stuff, so we can enable this kind of user experience, very traditional Web2 experience to the blockchain ecosystem. Yeah.
Nice. So you have mentioned the advantages. From my small research on your docs, you did mention that there's some limitations that Hydra has introduced to this all DEX experience. I just want you to mention how you sort of overcame those to achieve the product.
Yeah. So essentially, I think Hydra is a nice technology. It has been built for maybe a few years that without a very specific use case or case study in mind. So they have built a lot of cool features, but for any serious step to try to deploy into it, it's kind of difficult because there's something in the corner is not supporting a very specific use case. So when we come to the Hydra party, I remember it's late 2024, we have the product manager of Hydra at that time, Trim, to kind of guide me through in person how we could navigate all these constraint or restriction back in the day. So even in late 2024, we found out a pathway that we could minimally implement what we are thinking about envisioning in Delta DeFi. Then we decided to go for it. And to give some example, like what are the specific restrictions, one very intuitive that we could come into mind is to operate a Hydra head, we can only have that many of Hydra head participants. Maybe in a head, we only can accept maybe less than 10 of people hosting the network. So there would come into a paradox. For example, we want to host a dApp that enable thousands of users of using it, but in a head, there's only a few people. It's very easily to run into this mental restriction that Hydra cannot support this use case. But if we think about the issue more deeply, it's not the case. Because when you think about even in Cardano L1, like for whoever using Cardano, most of us are not the stake pool operators. We don't actually have to run a computer of the network in order to use it. Similarly to Hydra, like for Delta DeFi, we retain all the cryptographic security, aka the users still have to cite the transaction, but they are not the head operators. Right now, we are running all the heads ourselves, and we try to, when the product stabilizes, we might delegate some of the head operation right to the community so that we can achieve the more decentralized later. But essentially for our architecture, as we also slightly mentioned in the talks, is we compress all the depth information in a Merkle tree, in a Merkle root, and we commit the script UTXO into Hydra. So essentially when we see the L1 and Hydra interaction, there's only a few UTXO getting in and getting out. But the information condense is massive. Like right after the UTXO getting in 32 bytes into Hydra, we break it down into maybe millions, thousands of accounts, UTXOs, or all the UTXO, whatever we need, just like a L1 dApp, the typical L1 dApps. So we expand the Merkle tree inside the head and then do a bunch of operation, trading, balance updates. And then after everything, we condense back into a 32 byte, going back to the L1. So with this Merkle root, people could prove their ownership of assets, can still conduct the withdrawal or further deposit. They could interact with these 32 bytes. But it will be very inefficient in L1, of course, because there's a kind of, you have to run into a line, like one transaction in a time, since it's a single UTXO. But inside Hydra, we get the indefinitely scaling benefit. Every user just interacting with their corresponding state in the Hydra head. which could allow us to go indefinitely scalable in Delta DeFi application.
Okay, that's very interesting. I would like to know how you sort of approach security, given that from the docs, I see people will have to sort of deposit their assets into like a central place that now does the transaction. How do we ensure security? Do you have frameworks for auditing the tech that is being used in that account-based sort of system?
Yep. So essentially, cryptography-wise, Delta DeFi has zero difference to other L1 exchanges. Like people deposit, although they are storing in the same location, these money are still guarded by the scripts, the ICANN script, the EUTSO models. But the entire security concern of Hydra-based dApp or Delta DeFi is mostly on the Hydra operations. Because for these head, pretty much just less than 10 of head operators run the rules of the entire things. If these people like collude together, they could steal the user funds from there. So this is indeed the kind of the bottleneck of Hydra technology right now. But I would argue it's kind of same as any other scalable blockchains in other ecosystems. Like for example, we see Hyperliquid, they're running maybe only 10-ish active nodes on the ecosystem. Even say if we say Bitcoin, it's like 4 or 5 largest farmer kind of dominating the same network. And other Ethereum, EVM, L2 also, maybe just a few nodes, like maybe 3, 4. Some of those maybe just only run by the project owner themselves. So we can see this pattern is not just a Cardano problem. Just in our ecosystem, people care more about decentralization, so they will accuse the Hydra technology about these things. But I would say for the Hydra technology itself, it's originally inherently better than those EVM L2s. Because for those EVM L2, when they permanently deploy for just maybe 3, 4 node operator, yeah, it's forever. But in Hydra, the Hydra head implementation is just the current state of what we are seeing. It's going into a more Bitcoin Lightning kind of network where these local nodes will compare local head will communicate with other heads, like head-to-head communication, where we kind of spread that into a larger, wider kind of Hydra ecosystem. Maybe Delta DeFi head could communicate it with the MinSwap head, for example. So these kind of different Hydra heads are kind of monitoring the performance of each other's, and we have the potential to achieve a wider or higher decentralization in the futures. But right now, since we are the pioneer, the technology is in the stage of making it work at this moment. So I don't think any people in the ecosystem are dedicating that much resources into making it decentralized in the first place. Same as Cardano. The Cardano as a Byron era, IOG or the founding entities running all the Cardano nodes. It's indeed going to the Shelley era, try to decentralize the community range of SPOs. And right now we have the further decentralizations and decentralized governance. It's like a step-by-step process. Yeah.
Nice. So I want to discuss that there is an aspect of open source in this DeFi protocol. Maybe you could just share some of the things that are out there for developers and people trying to build something similar. What are some of the things or the tools that you've built? Earlier you mentioned that you're very big on the community tooling. Maybe you can just mention or point out a few of those.
Yep. Definitely for a large part of Delta DeFi, we are built on top of Mesh, which is most of the people know the TypeScript open source library SDK in Cardano. And in our test step, we also use Rust as transaction builder, where we are using the Whiskey library. Essentially, they have a very similar endpoint as Mesh, but it's just in Rust. So a lot of people might not know Whiskey is also exporting the Western to support Mesh. So if you're using the core CSL in mesh is indeed using Whiskey under the hood. And then in other languages, we have a minimal library to serve in the types and transaction signing. In Python, we have the gin or the alcoholic. And in Golang, we have the rum. Like we have whiskey, gin, and rum that is kind of currently supporting our the repeatable part of the open source tools that in Delta DeFi test stack. And in the middle, we have the smart contract and also the actual Delta DeFi transactions. This part, after our team discussion, we also make it open source, just for the ecosystem to take a look into what's happened when you deposit into Delta DeFi. You will know which exact script that you're depositing into, so that you, maybe if you're not confident in our implementation of stuff, at least you're protected with the icon script that you could audit and check the workflow yourself. And transaction building part, we also make it open source, because building transaction in Cardano is non-trivial. It's quite difficult, actually, at the end of the day. So we try to make more reference into how to use the library more properly in different languages, so that, yeah, kind of serving the community in some way. But our team keep all the business logic source code in closed source manner. Like, for example, the very database interactions, like how different microservices communicate with each other. These things are not the Cardano specific stuff. Pretty much is our kind of business secrets. So we keep these things which are not that relevant to the users' fund safety closed source, but we maintain it in a very rapid manner. So, but if you're a community member, we dig into the Delta DeFi GitHub or Cdana Lab GitHub, you can still find tons of open source references that if you want to build something very similar, you copy and paste some transaction. Yeah, change it into your manners to use it.
That is very interesting. Nice. So this is on a light note, I would just want to know, what was your motivation, especially on the icon libraries that you have created? All of them are named after some type of alcohol. What was the motivation behind that? Are you looking to go into wine production and alcohol production?
No. Yeah, just myself or our team in general like drinking. And there's a kind of alcohol shelf here in my home also. We have it tons. Yeah, so internally we also have a naming convention which is not too public. Like we have the Fokker library, is the icon testing util and on-chain util. For every icon library internally, we just name it in a brand of Fokker. And for whichever building in Rust on top of whiskey, will be in brand of a whiskey. Like Lagavulin, like Hibiki is our open source transaction builder on building repository on Delta DeFi. And we just try to route different internal libraries or repository on top of that specific spirit.
The nerds will be happy. The nerds will be happy to hear about this. Well, the last thing I guess I would want to know is, what next for Delta DeFi? What are you guys working on as of right now? I know that the product was recently launched, so I'm sure there are things that are in the pipelines that you guys are working for. What should we look forward to in the coming days?
Yep. If you are aware of, for our current beta launch, we restricted the user deposit with a limit, because for this we mostly want to demonstrate what's possible with Hydra technology. But still, there are some new features that we already completed. It's not rapid into this deployment. So there'll be quite a big change from this beta version to our actual versions. So right now in our team, we are trying to testing the newer versions, such that the current beta network or environment will go down very soon, and we'll make an announcement very, very soon. And then we will have a full launch into, in maybe in next few weeks, such that the feature will be more completed, like some edge features from users' perspective, throughput will be improved. Like even in Hydra, we are not really using the full power of it in the beta launch. But in the next version, we will have kind of many parallel transactions going through the same Hydra head, such that people cannot feel the speed limitation. And also we will, after that, we will lift the deposit restrictions such that people could deposit as much as they want. And we will have a few other pairs listed as well. With the initial liquidity provision by the project, it's kind of we have the discussion already. Like there will be some order book that starting off in new pairs with a very high spread. You could imagine that we tried to avoid the ESO experience a few years ago, where there are hundreds of pairs listed but no active order. Since it's an order book model, it's not like swap, just deposit or provide liquidity and everything's resolved. In order book model, we have to have both liquidity and the skills and the technology on how to maintain a market that make it tradable for users. The good point of it is we could achieve much more with less money with order book model. With swap, you have to provide maybe much more amount of liquidity in order to have a maybe 10K of swap without a big slippage. But in order book, we could achieve with a much higher capital efficiency. And we're working on these things. To community point of view, we are also launching some incentive programs to incentivize people early testing or joining our community, start off trading in our platform early. And we try to we are also working on the mechanism to send the message strong and clear to the community, such that early traders on our platform will be rewarded effectively. And we have some marketing campaign, quest system, maybe something like that to be announced. Like, yeah, a lot of stuff happening.
Yes, we are looking forward to I guess 12 months from now we'll have a fully functional product that people can. So we're looking forward to that. Just the last question, I promise. So I know it's still the early days of the protocol, of course, and the toolings that you've created, but is there some way community may contribute to some of the work that you're doing? Is there like avenues for contributions that you guys have thought about now that you have plenty of open source projects? Is there a way you do to just motivate people to come and contribute, basically?
Yeah. So to be frank, in our open source suites, we only have Whiskey getting a bit of Catalyst funding. For other libraries, we are pretty much just self-funded, and we try to kind of do good to community. So we cannot promise that if contributor comes, we could reward them adequately. But a very easy way to just be around in the community is simply use it.
Yeah.
Try to use the library that we created. We're pretty proud of, especially Whiskey and Fokker libraries. And you may not know Whiskey is kind of supporting mesh. There's already tons of developers using it implicitly. But if you are maybe a native Rust developer, you'll find it pretty handy, or find it home having a feature complete transaction building library on Rust. And Fokker, we are one of the, maybe just a few kind of supporting package surrounding Icon that could have a proper unit testing on your validators. We have built a very off-chain like unit testing framework where you could build mesh-like transaction in Icon just to test whether certain transactions should pass a certain validator. And yeah, I think the easiest way to be around is just to use it. If you see or find any issues, just create an issue or join our Discord to scream about the issues. Just more things like this. I think it's already contributing a lot for us to maintain the stuff. We would not expect people to create PR. Like definitely we will welcome. But yeah, simply using it and providing feedback will help us a lot in maintaining this stuff.
Nice. Thank you very much. So thanks, Hinson, for hanging out with us. This was wonderful. I hope we get to do it some other time. Thank you very much for joining us. So 30 minutes as I promised.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was fun.